Welcome to the show that's unscripted, unfiltered, and uncontrollable.
Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Destroying Kayfabe. I am your host, CM Styles, and with me, as always, my right-hand man, my wingman, my partner in wrestling crime, Mr. Chaos himself. How are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. I'd like to welcome everybody back. We got a good one tonight.
Oh, yeah. Sorry we didn't get to do a podcast last week. I'll be honest, I had zero idea what content we could throw out there. Last month and a half, we've been covering WCW and ECW, and guess what? We're going to cross back over to the WCW timeline. Tonight, we're going to talk about some cruiserweights. For those who remember the cruiserweight division, one of the greatest divisions of all time in World Championship Wrestling. And,
Absolutely.
you know, people don't give the cruiserweights enough credit, but we know just enough that we can.
Right.
Chaos, I know you said you were watching a lot of content on this stuff. I remember just about a majority of.
Right. Absolutely, Mr. Styles. I mean, going back to it, I think what we've covered so far between the NWO, our first series, and then ECW, our second series, we talked about the impact that each of those individual ECW as a promotion, NWO as a faction, and it can't be understated what the cruiserweights have created as an impact, especially on today's wrestling, because a lot of your wrestlers today are they're smaller than what they were at that time, and we're going to kind of take a deep dive into that. We're going to talk about the international impact on it, and we're going to go from there.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, when it comes to the whole international thing, you got to remember all the internationals that came into WCW through the cruiserweight division. One of the biggest cruiserweights, sadly, he was more of a heavyweight than he was a cruiserweight, was Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and of course, you said this, and I'm not going to say it because you remember one of the greatest pay-per-view matches of all time. And I would like for you to talk about this because I know exactly what I'm going to say afterwards, because I marked out for this match just as much as you did, and it was one special pay-per-view, and you can call it the cosplay special for one specific
time. I mean, you're talking about Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
So it was, what was that start? I think it was
Halloween Havoc 97.
Halloween Havoc 97. That's it.
Like I said, the cosplay pay-per-view.
Ray came out in the purple with the question marks all over, kind of like a Riddler style thing.
Yep.
Yeah, because Batman Forever had probably just come out maybe like 6 months before that.
Somewhere around that timeline.
And, yep.
And those two tore the roof off of the place. The thing is, like everyone marked out for the match, just about. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people didn't understand the aspects of the cruiserweight division because you and we talked about this before. ECW invented most of these guys. Most of these guys came from, CMLL, AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like the origins of it, like you said, CMLL and AAA. Mexico and Japan. A lot of guys, even there was guys that came from a promotion called War in Japan. Chris Jericho included, who came into WCW as a cruiserweight. So, like we kind of touched on a little bit already, is that international impact that was essentially came out on a consistent basis. There was things that were done before with the WWF where. There would be some collaboration with like Antonio Inoki. I guess you could call the British Bulldogs, even though they trained. Davey Boy trained in Canada, and Dynamite was from England, but there wasn't such an influx of talent like we saw until the WCW Cruiserweight division, and it came from several different areas, and I think that's like what we're kind of going to get at tonight. Is like that nexus of where they came from: AAA, CMLL, ECW, which actually obviously took from AAA and the Mexico and war. But that aside, is they provided a relevancy to guys coming into WCW.
Oh, absolutely. And like we said, Jericho, or not Jericho, Eddie and Ray, two of the most dominant cruiserweights. And of course, we also had other great feuds between Chris Jericho, mainly going up against every Latino wrestler in the company. And of course, he always had his list of 1,001 holds.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but
one of my favorite feud.
Right, it was him and Dean Malenko.
Right, yeah, that is that's still today one of my favorite feuds. That was just peak Jericho, or I wouldn't even want to say peak. It was just like
he was still fresh into his heel career.
He was young, right? He was young, but it was hilarious. I forget what he called him something. It was, and obviously there was a man of 1,001 holds. But that was
the Iceman. Malenko was the man of 1,000 holds, and then of course he steps up that he hit the whole 1,001 list. It was flawless. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And
that was great. Yeah,
you'll never get anything like that ever again.
Right.
Of course, down the road.
Aside from that, I think they had a match at like Slamboree '98. And I think that was what culminated after the 1,001 holds type of feud. Geez, what a fucking terrible name, Slamboree.
Yeah, I don't know why they would have done anything like that, but
that said, it was a good match. It was a great match, obviously.
So let's see some of the greatest matches of all time. Like I said, one match that carried over from ECW to WCW. Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko Clash of Champions 33.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It was in August 15th. I think that was 1995, 96, around there. Of course, we all know Rey Mysterio and Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko. They were workhorses in ECW. He was literally just decimating everybody. He, honestly, when you look at his ECW career versus WCW, he worked a whole lot lighter in WCW.
Definitely.
Because when he would do things that were gut wrenching, makes you wish you did not go against him.
Yeah, I'll say
because it was extreme wrestling.
Right, I'll say it right now to get it out of the way is that Rey Mysterio is the greatest cruiserweight of all time.
Of course, without a doubt. Even when he put him in the heavyweight division, he still acted like a cruiserweight.
Exactly. It's pretty much indisputable. And like you were talking about an ECW feud that carried over. I got a great, obviously an incredible. I think we probably talked about it over and over again in the last 2 weeks, or prior to that in our ECW segments, was Rey and Psychosis.
Yes, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I was in Rey and Psychosis at one night stand. That wasn't that Rey Mysterio and Sabu? I think it was Rey and Sabu. Yeah,
I might have been Rey. It might have been like Rey and.
Pretty sure it was Rey versus Sabu because the match I believe ended like a no contest because they went through the table and that was it.
The funny thing is that Rey and Psychosis, they had their 2 or 3 matches in ECW, especially that Mexican death match, which was unreal. That is a classic 5-star match, like one of the original American Lucha Libre matches. Then they had their first WCW pay-per-view match at the infamous pay-per-view, Bash at the Beach 96.
Oh, shit. That's right. That was the year Hogan turned heel.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's obviously going to remember the ending of the pay-per-view, but that match was fantastic. Obviously. God, how can I forget? Now thinking about it, I need to get my brain back. That's like a Savage Steamboat of that pay-per-view. Even though, I mean, I remember it. You probably, if you remember.
There's so much that you would still have to take in. Like, literally, I would like to go back to an entire archive. Too bad the WWE Network doesn't exist anymore. not get used to anyway. That's why things like this are important. But
I
go
agree.
woke, go broke. So
Yeah, well,
did I say that out loud? My goodness, what is wrong?
yeah.
All right, so let's see who else we have here. Oh, no, going through some more.
Ultimo Dragon was a great Japanese export as well.
Yes, that's right. I remember when he started showing up. He and Ray had some good matches. As a matter of fact, he used to work a lot of nitros. As a matter of fact, 1996 Hog Wild.
There you go. Oh, Hog Wild. Sturgis
went the very first event.
Mm-hmm.
Right before the NWO.
Right, and you had some guys that really didn't get their due, and I'm gonna get the one that is going to be on my Mount Rushmore of cruiserweights, who we haven't even talked about yet. But before that, I'm going to talk about a guy named Blitzkrieg.
Remember the name?
Yeah, he was fantastic. He had some very good matches with Juventud Guerrero. He had a tag match. He was involved. He was one of the luchas that wore like the full body suit. So while everybody remembers La Parka with the chairs and everything, even though La Parka, he sucked in a way in the ring. I don't even think he was a cruiserweight. He was like a heavyweight.
No, he was a heavyweight, but he was
right. He just hung out with them.
He carried a chair. That's all he knows.
Right. Yeah. He was like the remember the Villanos.
Remember?
Yeah.
That?
He was like Villano number 8 or something. Yeah. Yeah, he was good.
Here's one for you, just for shits and giggles. He was the jobber cruiserweight of the WCW, Super Colo.
Oh yeah, super. But he actually held the cruiserweight title too.
I mean, he was a great acquisition. I mean, he knew how to work. It's just the fact that his biggest job was the Scott Hall.
Yeah. Well, there was always times where they fed the cruiserweights to the heavyweights.
Yeah, and that felt bad.
Yeah,
that wasn't even so booking yet.
Right. Yeah. Let's not act like that didn't happen.
No, you can't act like that.
Yeah. Right. So
I mean, look at
right.
Go
ahead. Basically, the cruiserweights were the openers on Nitro, and I think at the time that was never fair. Let's be honest let's be real. That was never fair. But I understood the way that Bischoff wanted to work, the way they booked them, because you didn't know them. So you wanted to start out with a little bit of excitement to get the crowd going before somebody lulled you to sleep with a shit promo in the ring. Or later on, the NWO came out. So there was a structure to the show that I think they followed.
Yeah, and now that you mention this, wasn't like Nitro like 3 hours long for a while? Mm-hmm. Remember when the first hour? The first hour used to have a countdown. I think the first hour had a countdown, and they used that countdown to advertise the Cruiserweight division and any enhancement talent they had. And then as soon as that was done, they would end up breaking out the pyro for hours 2 and 3 just to one shot. And that thing about that's kind of slap in the face to the curtain jerkers and the beginning, the pre-shows. Mm-hmm. It was basically that's all it was. The first hours was just a glorified pre-show. It was a televised pre-show, man. It was sad.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think eventually, with the advent of like the internet at the time, or like the boom of the internet at the time, the cruiserweight division definitely became more and more noticeable. But they never obviously they weren't pushing those guys anywhere, but they weren't open. Well, I think they would open the show every now and then with jobbers for like Goldberg or a Nash. So I don't want to boost WCW's ego or whatnot, but
wouldn't boost WCW's ego, but at least because they still had that dark history of screwing.
And another thing is, I think that before the Bischoff era, there was a WCW cruiserweight division, whether it was a title or not. For example, going back to what you said, Jushin Thunder Liger, Brian Pillman was probably a cruiserweight.
The best time to watch the Cruiserweight division was between 96 and 99. Because as soon as 99 came around, a well-known booker from WWF started shifting his way over to WCW. And that's when everything, not just the Cruiserweight, but the entire company just started getting really weird. You started seeing things come to life in very unfashionable fashions. And I'm pretty sure you know exactly who I am talking about.
Who you talking about, bro?
Bro, is exactly. If it wasn't on a poll, it ain't.
Come on, bro.
I respected the guy for doing what he did in the Attitude Era in WWE.
Yeah,
Because
I think that's overstated too.
Like, it wasn't just him that helped do everything. It's just the fact that he talked a good game with Vince.
Right.
Said, this is what you need to do to beat WCW, and it worked.
He was on creative, and it just so happened that his ideas were better than Jim Cornette's outdated fucking ideas.
Yeah, and of course, Jim Cornette, I'm not going to take nothing away from him from back in those days, but he was a Smoky Mountain guy.
He was a fucking...
take that tennis racket, stick it up your ass, because those days are long gone.
Right, yeah. I think Jim Cornette knew how to build a feud, but he had no fucking idea what character development ever was.
I mean, he's a classic old school wrestling fan. And
yeah, exactly.
I love classic old school wrestling.
Sure.
You do need promos here and there. You do need character development. Anything outside of that is blatantly boring unless you're Young Bucks. But
yeah.
Sorry, Jim. We know you hate them too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Rocker Hardy wannabes.
Right.
I'm elite, so it's okay.
Nice. No, I mean, so getting back on the cruiserweight subject, I think that we touched on a lot of the matches, but the impact that the cruiserweights have made today is that the smaller wrestler, and I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way, because obviously I'm small, everybody's small, but they were able to showcase their talent, and it got away from that hulking big wrestler who might have worked stiff or who was just put over because of his size. ROH ran with it. ECW obviously imported it, and it just went from there. And I think that the cruiserweights, as far as today, have made maybe the biggest impact on wrestling that is so little talked about.
Yeah, and aside from the cruiserweight, we had other cruiserweight-like divisions and other promotions.
Mm-hmm. The X division in TNA. Of course.
Exactly. They have their X division. ECW. They had their own. It was a cruiserweight division, but it wasn't called a cruiserweight division. You can thank ECW for creating such a thing.
Sure.
Bringing it over, inventing it over to WCW, then
right. Mm-hmm.
You had that's basically what helped develop independent wrestling today.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 1,000% correct.
Because most of these guys are spot monkeys, so it's just like
yeah.
I mean, it don't matter if they botch it or not. It's just the fact that they want to try.
Yeah, that's a different story for another day. But it is kind of what it is. Sure, that aspect exists within that division. Sort of just like rest holds or whatever you want to call them exist in the heavyweight division. So,
yep. And of course, if you want, we can time jump into 1997 real quick. Now you remember we already talked about Bash at the Beach. Ended. Now, in 1997, they got one of the biggest recruitments of all time. Do you remember who that was?
In 97 for a cruiserweight?
Yeah. For the NWO.
Oh, for the NWO. What are you talking about? 6?
That's right.
The Kid? The Kid? The Kid. Forgot about the Kid.
Can't forget about Kid. Can't forget about Six Pack. He was one of the greatest acquisitions to the cruiserweight division. Literally, when NWO made their faction, they have one of everything for every part of the division.
That's a good point.
The jobber side, which you had the fake Sting, you had the cruiserweight 6, the heavyweight like Hogan and Savage, and of course you had enhancement guys like Scott Norton, who was a beast of a wrestler. Sadly, he wasn't utilized properly in the NWO, and then, but he was the enforcer of some sort.
Sure.
But
Vincent.
put him, yeah, oh, poor guy. He's suffering from dementia, I believe now.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, there's a few other
He had
guys that are like
everything.
very forgotten.
But Sticks, he was a standout guy, and of course, one of his very first feuds was against Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie was just
Eddie.
a class of
Eddie
his
was
own.
Cruiserweight champion at the time. And
Right.
I believe Six is the one that stole the title off of him. He didn't win it. He just stole the belt, and they did that ladder match, and he got the title back.
Right. What about Prince Iakea?
Iakea, the Prince, the artist formerly known as the Prince. Sadly, they ruined his character when.
Who did he come down with? Sonny Ono.
Was it Sonny Ono? Or was it that blonde haired chick?
No, it was Sonny Ono. Sonny Ono, the funny story is Sonny Ono was actually the guy that got Eric Bischoff a job at WCW.
Shit. Oh, damn. That's right. Because Sonny Ono was also part of New Japan, which helped Eric Bischoff, which makes more sense why we had NWO USA versus with NWO Japan.
Right. And I was going to get to these guys later, but like, what was funny is WCW was so fucking bad in the the 2000s, but you did have Billy Kidman.
Yes, Billy Kidman was great.
It's unreal that we went this long without mentioning Billy Kidman. To be honest with you, that's my fault.
And it's funny because he went from being he was basically somewhat of a jobber when he first started there, intimate cruiserweight jobber, to joining the flock. To break away from the flock after. Who was it that he had to face? Who did Raven face to where if he lost, the flock
he had to give up Billy Kidman. That was awesome, yeah.
And I think it was against Lodi.
Or Lodi and
Lodi.
Lodi and Lenny, yeah.
Lodi.
But Lodi was in the flock too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the one. He was the one that always held the signs. That was him, and then because of him, Van Hammer ended up becoming a hippie, which was pretty funny, but it was WCW. WCW was just carny as WWF.
I'll tell you, I was a big Flock fan.
So was I.
They were smoking cigarettes at ringside and getting all fucked up. That was hysterical. Obviously, nobody knew that then.
No one really paid much attention, but let's see. I'm trying to think of some other cruiserweights here. Chavo ended up being in there.
Oh, Chavo.
Eddie brought Chavo in, and then, of course, the relationship between Uncle Eddie and Chavo was just fucking hilarious.
Absolutely.
Always fighting each
Chavo had
other.
good matches, too. Yep.
Chavo had great matches. Sadly, he came up with Pepe.
And then, again, a guy heading back to the late, or the 2000s was Shane Helms.
Yeah, 3 count.
Yeah.
3 count. And of course, we ended up getting the Hurricane out of him. And he was a great cruiserweight in WCW.
Yeah, Shane Helms had a ton of talent.
He was very, I mean, even when he wasn't the Hurricane, when he ended up repackaged into Gregory Helms.
I love that. That was good.
He was a cruiserweight, but he wasn't. He was a cruiserweight champion, though. That was the best part. He carried that thing, but he didn't treat himself as a cruiserweight. It was a manipulation against the division. And that's one thing I like about some of these guys, after a while they realize, I'm not a cruiserweight, but I'll pretend to be one.
Right.
Of course, I was just talking about this on Shane Helms' Facebook page that I actually have his Gregory Helms figure. As a matter of fact, I have a Hurricane figure over here in my collection.
Stand back.
Oh, God.
Juventud Guerrero was actually very, very underrated. He
moved
so well. He actually had a good technical repertoire, I think.
Yeah, sadly his demons caught up to him after a while, especially when he went over to WWE. He had, I hate to put it out there, we all know that he had demons with his alcohol issues. And of course, if you saw it on YouTube back in the day, he used to go to like our AAA shows. He would be fucking hammered. Or some
I never knew that.
Show. Yeah,
I know that AEW brought him back for a match with Jericho, which was pretty decent.
Just like
Yeah, and here's a guy, and I know you'll like this because you're a TNA guy, Mr. Styles.
Yes.
Alex Skipper.
Elix Skipper.
Elix Skipper.
Elix Skipper. Elix Skipper was so underrated, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
When Elix, as a matter of fact, I think Elix was one of the part of the dying breed of WCW. Him and AJ were there for a while at the dying end before TNA became a thing. Elix Skipper was a great talent. I didn't see him in WCW at the time, but I did see Air Styles because he was teamed with Air Paris and they were the Air Raid.
Right, and then there was 3 count. I think it was
Three
like
count, which
it was
like,
it was Shannon Moore, and Evan Courageous.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, like I'm thinking, like if I had to name just four, I think it would probably be Rey, Psychosis, Eddie, and I'm trying I don't think it would be Jericho as the fourth.
Jericho was still fresh into his.
Yeah, I know it would be Rey and Psychosis just because they like.
Rey and Psychosis definitely are in Mount Rushmore. I would put Dean Malenko in there.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Dean Malenko would be a great acquisition to that. And there's one we did not talk about.
Uh-oh. No, Conan.
Man was a cruiserweight before he upped his weight and his style. He was a cruiserweight for a little bit.
He worked a weird
way of being a cruiserweight. Like, he wasn't a high flyer, but he rolled around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Worked a really different style compared to the other cruiserweights. I loved it. We got some chatters in here. We got Rich. We got Metal.
Got fucking chatters.
Yes, we do.
Who are the chatters? Mount Rushmore of cruiserweights.
Chatters of the Mount. So the chatter. Well, we only got 2 in here. So our Mount Rushmore.
Shit. That's probably 2 more than we didn't have a half hour ago.
Actually, you're kind of right. But no, Rich is the Mount Rushmore. He is the Mount Rushmore gaming, Mount Rushmore common sense.
Rich is like Mr. Nintendo Power, from what I've heard.
He is, man. He is definitely Nintendo Power. Love you for that one, brother. And Metal,
Rich.
Metal is DJ Metal. Nah. We're not going there with that one. No way.
What was that? I'm gonna log into the chat now.
I had to retract that one. That's not acceptable. Oh, you asshole. All right. So he was in here giving some. I do not do that. I shit you not. But I know someone that would shit on your bed.
Shit.
Heard that. So let's see. Oh, another cruiserweight that you remember. After a while, they repackaged him to the worst gimmick of all time. Alex Wright.
Oh God! I didn't. You know what? That was a name I didn't want to hear tonight.
You were going to avoid it, Sally. I was actually a fan of his.
I brought him up the other night, and it was like
he actually has a wrestling school here in the U.S. and in Germany.
Jesus Christ!
But he doesn't come over here for all this stuff all the time. And right now with
I'll always remember there was a Jericho promo, and it was probably his early WWF days, where he even mentioned, he said, imagine taking a seat to an 18-year-old German kid.
Ouch.
And it was great.
Yeah. Oh, shit. So I'm trying to get through more of the cards.
Game money. Slow gameplay to kick it off. You gotta what's it?
So let's see. Here we go. Some Jericho versus Super Colo. There we go. It's one of the matches. It's Super Colo, one of the greatest jobbers. And of course, around this time, Jericho started using the walls of Jericho more than he used like the lion saw as a finisher. of course, Jericho, one of the greatest young cruiserweights. He
yeah.
was working his way up to that Mount Rushmore, but like you said, he's not going to get that one right now. Not for maybe when he started going over to the WWF, but during that time he was no longer cruiserweight. He was up in heavyweights with guys like The Rock and Austin, Triple H.
Sure,
It's
naturally.
amazing how they
Right, and
him up there.
one match I'll remember is at Fall Brawl. I think it was like '97 or '98. Jericho versus Eddie, and at the time, building up to it, the cruiserweights, none of them were heels, none of them were face. It was purely just
It was
wrestle.
just
just
it was
go
a
out and
pop
wrestle.
fest, yeah.
Right, but Eddie actually, and this was the first time I'd seen Eddie Guerrero as a heel. So he comes out as a heel, and him and Jericho just beat the piss out of each other for like the first 10, 15 minutes of the match. Then it's a technical feast, and it's a great match. It's probably in my top three as far as cruiserweights would go.
I'm trying to think. One of my favorite cruiserweight matches. I mean, aside from '97,
Right.
I don't think anything that. Of course. Oh, here. Before I even try to think of any other matches that could top that, which possibly there isn't. Never forget, Disco Inferno was kind of part of the cruiserweight division.
No, it's kind of like I feel like we've run into a wall because there's like 9 or 10 guys who've had like 5 to 10 great matches, which is what the cruiserweight division was, and
Yeah,
shit, I would take that every day of the week.
Even if you looked at this picture, that I found this earlier, and I don't know who the artist was. It wasn't credited. So whoever did this fantastic art, we thank you for that. Trying to think who else we had. Like you said, we had La Parca.
Yeah.
Wasn't Lance Storm in WCW for a short bit?
Yeah, but Lance definitely was not a cruiserweight. Lance was like 6'2", 6'3", from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. By the way.
Yeah, I can't forget that. If you could let him be serious for a minute, which I try not to. But we had Ultimo Dragon.
We could really go back to the Dynamite Kid, Tiger Mask, if you really wanted to.
Oh my god, dude!
Step
Tiger
back
Mask
in
was
time.
great. Tiger Mask was awesome because he was not just in Mexico; he was in Japan, literally all around the world, man.
Oh yeah.
Same would apply with Ultimo,
Yeah,
Jushin Thunder Liger.
Right. And we could probably touch base if we wanted to. I'm not really sure. I went to like the WWF version at the time, which was like the junior heavyweight title. I guess it was Taka Michinoku, who was a great wrestler. He was involved with that. Shit, I don't even remember. There was Super Crazy and Tajiri in ECW.
Yeah, too bad Tajiri never made WCW. It would have been a great acquisition.
Yeah, but I like Tajiri. He did a good job. He may actually.
He went to WWF after the whole.
Yeah.
I mean,
Me too.
He actually had a nice following. He had a lot of back support, and of course, then they paired him with William Regal. At the time, I was thinking to myself, that's some joke shit, but it helped him because he literally mentored Tajiri to build a character. He was more of a comedic relief now than he was a serious wrestler.
Sure. I mean, we could have mentioned Chris Benoit or Perry Saturn, but I don't know. I didn't hear that. Did you?
I thought I heard something. I don't know. I'm losing my shit.
Yeah. I was talking about Perry Saturn from the Eliminator.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he might have been a little heavy.
Just a bit. I mean, when he was an Eliminator, that was a totally different story.
Total elimination.
Of course, yeah. So I would think other than Rey and Eddie being one of my matches, I think it was the fact that when Dean Malenko and Jericho had their feud just before they did everything,
Definitely.
Dean Malenko was in a battle royal, and he was under a mask, and he won that battle royal. And then later at night, he came out in that mask until Joker realized it was Dean Malenko in the ring.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
That reminds me of a match in the WWE, like
You know, it's
2015.
I hate to interrupt, but you know what's crazy is that I can't seem to find or even recall a Jericho Rey Mysterio match in WCW or even ECW.
What?
You would have
They've been
figured.
the only two cruiserweights that didn't feud.
You would have figured, but I just can't. I can't picture. I know Ultimo Dragon and Jericho did.
I'll have to look it up
Malenko,
after the show because. Let's see. Let me go through my card here. Chris Jericho and Marty Jannetty went against each other.
Good old Marty.
Let's see. Yuji Nagata. You remember Yuji Nagata?
Mm-hmm.
New Japan great right there.
Here's another late WCW guy who kind of went on to a little bit of success was Kaz Hayashi.
Kaz Hayashi. Yeah, I remember Kaz.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't bad. Wasn't bad.
And then Jericho versus Hector Guerrero.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie's uncle.
Yep.
And of course, during that time, Hector was in a whole lot better shape. And then Hector's last appearance in any history other than AAA was Impact. He was in support with LAX for TNA's Impact's final days before Dixie Carter took over. Those days. Brad Armstrong. Oh yeah, that's right. Brad Armstrong was kind of a lightweight or a cruiserweight style.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely go back like Tom Zank.
Yeah, the Z-Man. Z-Man was in there. But the thing was, Z-Man, like, he was more
pretty big.
He could fly, but he was buff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Rick Martel, maybe.
Did we just not watch that Family Feud the other night?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I was like, what could money buy you? Didn't have that intelligence. Oh, I said to myself, I'm done.
That's hilarious. Ray Combs, man, for life.
Ray Combs was just like, I think he was just ready to just like walk off the stage. That was some stupid shit, but it was great. It was great comedy. Really.
That was. I used
to here we go. Sold out 1998. Jericho defeated Rey Mysterio.
All right.
Sold out. 8.5-minute match. So they have one match.
But weren't the first two sold outs awful? I knew the first one was terrible.
The first one was terrible, but the fact is, WCW allowed Bischoff to create an NWO event where they dominated, and that was a good build-up to going into this. But the production was so garbage.
Yeah. And they were trying something else. That's good research by you, by the way.
I think the reason they did, I think that was all intentional because they knew that the NWO did not care about high production, high quality anything. They were just
I think that was kind of like supposed to be like the idea, like with their fucking stupid ass commercials. Even though I kind of like them, like with the black and white promos.
The following announcement has been paid. In world order. Yeah,
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Let's see, we had Lenny Lane. I don't remember that. Kind of. Cyclope. I don't remember Cyclope. But we had just go Inferno. Here it is. I think this is it right here. The final run between Jericho and Malenko was March 15th at Uncensored 98. That was the end of their feud. And then that's when Jericho started just going up against anybody. Because he was getting ready to be on his way out. Because come 98, he ends up in WWF.
I'm trying to think of who Paul Heyman. He watched a Jericho match with Jericho in Japan in War, and that's what convinced him to sign Jericho to ECW. I'm trying to remember who that was that he wrestled. I think it was Ultimo Dragon.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was because Ultimo, he was just way too big in Japan. Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I think he was a little bit bigger than Muda. Muda was
you're right.
Muda was crazy.
You're exactly right. He was much stronger than Muta, that's for sure.
And this guy was a cruiserweight, but also had the qualifications of a heavyweight. I mean, do you remember when he came to WCW? Tony Ono came out with all them titles.
Yeah.
He came out with like
Yep.
19,000 different fucking titles at the same
That's
time.
right,
And I'm like,
that's right.
it's like, how fucking crazy is this? Like,
Yeah.
this guy, Ultimo comes in as a heel. He displays his power. Of course, who did they feud him against? Glacier.
Yeah, Glacier. Devin Storm.
Oh my god! And of course, Glacier. Do you remember his repackage? Do you remember when he repackaged him after all that shit?
I was just thinking. I mean, you might be. Ultimo might be like the fourth guy on that Mount Rushmore. At least, like he's top 5. Seriously, he was. That's the Japan representative, without a doubt.
Of course, here we go. So further along the road, Kidman started becoming a star of WCW's Cruiserweight division. He and Tori were together during that time, just before WCW 2000 started kicking. We forgot about that. And of course, around this time, 99, 2000, 99, they started coming out with a new pay-per-view, WCW Mayhem. Remember that? And then they made a video game out of it.
Of course, they had a fucking video game for it. Yep.
I have both copies on PS2 and 64. Like, how much do you like your life? I don't.
I think Mayhem wasn't the worst game. I think the game started to become shit when Nitro came out.
Actually, Nitro came out before Mayhem. THQ had the license, and the EA took the license.
No. Nitro was a claim game.
No. Nitro and Thunder were THQ, and then THQ.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
As soon as you turn it on, it'll tell you THQ.
Checking that shit out right now.
I will give you all the time in the world that you need. Now, because during that time, Acclaim had WWF Attitude, Warzone, ECW, Anarchy Rules, and then after that, they made Legends of Wrestling. And then those ended up on the PS2. THQ had WCW Nitro, WCW versus the World, WCW NWO World Tour.
Those are fantastic games.
I mean, the 64 side of wrestling was great. PS1 side, because of the disc-based system, you can allow things like full motion video. So they were more worried about, showing clips of WCW matches or intros more than putting
you're right.
money into the production.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You were right about Nitro.
It is a
THQ game, yeah.
THQ sadly bombed with them. They picked up down the road. They end up getting Ukes to work with them, which we'll talk about Ukes in a little bit, because AEW game is in big trouble right now. But THQ made the SmackDown series up until WWE 13, and then 14 came out. It was still part of THQ's license, or publishing. But the thing was, 2K ended up buying them out because THQ was going under. But the THQ team stayed back and made 14 real fast. And 2K took over, and well, you see how it is nowadays.
Got that shit down, boss. We might need to have a wrestling video game
that is
show.
Definitely. I did that one time with the top 10 best top 10 with who I don't even know if he's alive now or whatever, or if he's in jail. Mark Adam Haggerty, the former MLW announcer who got busted for sexting a teenage boy.
Wow. Sounds like RF, that dude,
Yeah. Fucked up shit, man. I was like, this guy.
Pretty fucked up. But,
I was friends with the guy until I found out about it, and I was like, yep, adios, dude. That hurt, because I knew him for years until that incident.
Yeah, but it's not your fault. Not like you could predict that would happen.
No.
Yeah, but,
of course, 99, things started getting weird. WCW Cruiserweight division started to dwindle downhill. Vince Russo was starting to get into control. And who was backstage with him most of the time? I don't know if you remember. It was right at the end of 99, 2000, right before the buyout. Or actually, not even the buyout.
Was it Ed Ferrara?
No, it was a TNA interviewer.
Mike Tenay?
No.
Oh, wow.
He used to talk to this guy.
Not Don West, right? My boy?
No, not Don West.
Oh, God. It's not Eric Young, huh?
Not even Eric Young.
What, the franchise?
Maybe himself.
Who?
Jeremy Borash.
Oh, gosh.
Jeremy Borash was in WCW. He was,
Oh, God.
yeah, he was basically a servant to Vince Russo back in those days. He would stand there.
I never knew that, actually.
Weird ass shit used to happen right before that. During that time, Kevin Nash was running the company. He was booking himself as the president of WCW. It was really weird shit. This is WCW.
Jeremy Borash is like the poor man's Gabe.
Like the minute they changed that structure, the old school structure, to that millennium structure, where the big WCW logo was out there, the Ready to Rumble was that, which is another thing that put WCW out of business. I feel bad for that guy. He didn't deserve that. I don't figure Poke of Doom, but yeah. Arquette would have been a great cruiserweight back in those days if he actually would have put time into wrestling. But now he's doing it in the indies.
Yeah, now I hear he just
he's actually giving back to the wrestling community.
Right,
Did he have a match against Nick Gage and he got like stabbed in the throat by accident with a fucking light bulb?
I do believe that. I was just about to say, I heard he's engaging in like Hep C activities in the ring.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And yeah, right around here.
He's not actually wrestling. He's just getting fucking stabbed over and over again. That's just my take on it. Yeah, you know what? In weekly news, they canceled Dark Side of the Ring.
Actually, Metal and you and I were talking about this the other day. Unless they just confirmed it now, but apparently they're trying to work on content. They're trying to work on content for Dark Side of the Ring. I really don't know what all they can do at this point. That Ric Flair episode basically was like
that buried them. That fucking buried them.
Sorry, maybe they shouldn't have done that because it kind of hurt the credibility.
Yeah, I don't know. That was.
That was more like
that drew a ton of attention, but that was just
it caused a lot of firings.
Right. There wasn't a lot of facts in that.
No, it wasn't. The fact that people jumped to conclusions, and of course this new culture that's out there. As soon as
we know about you opened up the show with it.
Yeah, like I said, go woke, go broke. I'm not afraid to say that shit out loud.
There you go.
You know,
I
challenge them all, man.
That's right.
They did something wrong back in the day. Don't fucking to them. They're not the ones that had nothing. They were just stuck in a bad situation because of these guys. They got no career anymore. They're left in the fucking dust. Be a fucking man, or woman, or whatever you fucking want to identify as. I really don't give a shit, man.
I think what's funny is that most of those guys went on to have pretty okay careers, but it's a shame that I'll tell you, Kurt Hennig was hilarious. I think it's so overlooked that how great Kurt Hennig was as a wrestler, and just how Kurt Hennig would have thrived if he would have been healthy in a different era. I always thought that Kurt Hennig was a wrestler born in a different era. That
and he was his work rate, his selling abilities. He would fucking get tossed out in some fashion or get hit in a fashion where he would oversell it to perfection, and he would make it believable. He is that lost art. He was ahead of his time.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's only two other people that can sell like he did. One of them from the Attitude Era, Billy Gunn.
Yeah, well, Billy Gunn.
From the Ruthless Aggression Era and up. Ziggler.
Oh, Walt
Because
Ziggler, huh?
all three of them had the same abilities as Stellar and working. Of course, now Billy Gunn's a whole lot older. He's like pushing
Hey,
his mid
still
60s.
looks good.
He's in the best shape of his life now than he
Yeah.
was back in the day. And of course, Billy Gunn, man, or not Billy Gunn, fucking Dolph Ziggler, good old Nick Nemeth. You know, he's a fucking fantastic. Dude's fucking living his life like he's in the fucking late 80s now with his fucking hairstyle and beard.
He's got his kid in there now and everything too, right?
Like, and it's funny because they just made him NXT champ a while back, and of course he just lost the so
Yeah, well,
he loses to a Steiner.
Steiner, bro.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, Scott Steiner himself, Papa Pump, before he was Papa Pump.
Yeah, they had the Steiner brothers kind of high flyers in the form.
But you would have thought that Scott Steiner in WCW at the time with the Steiner brothers was on the same projection path as Bret Hart was with the Hart Foundation. You would have
high flying and technical wrestling.
Right, you would have had him pegged as like the next superstar in WCW, like they had Bret pegged, and actually succeeded as the next superstar in WWF. But wasn't to be. Their third mistake was actually joining the WWF at that time.
Mm-hmm. And in 98, 99, we ended up getting a great acquisition from Mexico. Do you remember who he was? He feuded with Sting on the way out of WCW.
He was a cruiserweight?
He was a cruiserweight. He had one of the greatest theme songs of all time for a stock theme. Let's just say this.
Ghetto. Remember Ghetto?
He was a AAA guy too. He also was a part of Lucha Underground. To put some things together if you watch Lucha Underground.
Yeah, I've watched my fair share of that. Oh shit! With Sting in the late '99 and the late '90s.
Late '90s, one of the greatest cruiserweight styles. As a matter of fact, I think ICP came out with him.
Oh, Vampiro.
Go.
Yeah, Vampiro was the shit.
Yeah, Vampiro was great, man.
Like he was. I'm shocked we forgot about him.
And of course, other names like Lash LaRue. He was somewhat of he was the Cajun cruiserweight.
Yeah.
Let's see,
at the time, WCW, and we were talking about this the other day, was that WCW had all this bullshit. Like they had the No Limit Soldiers, the Kiss Army, the Kiss Demon. But then Vampiro was just chilling with the Misfits, like Jerry Only. I think that actually was like it went over decently. I think Crush came out. Brian Adams, or Crush as he was called. He was the Kiss Demon. So we'll get that out of the way first. But yeah, Vampiro. I always was a big fan of him. At least back then I was. Not that I loved the ICP or nothing, but
I wasn't a big fan of ICP. Like they only had a few good hits in the '90s, and that's all I ever remember.
Yeah, but Vampiro was good. He was good. He was solid.
Was great. He carried everything.
He was right. He was very He was believable.
Like he came out. He didn't look like a vampire, although that's what he considered to be. He was more like the wrestler of death because he had the fucking skull face.
Right.
It was more like if you ever remember one of the comic books in the Punisher, or one of the issues where he had skull makeup instead of just a regular look, like his dark operations get up. That's basically what he was right there, but with long hair.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, he faced.
He was pretty over as a heel.
God, he was just over in general. People loved him. As soon as they found out he was coming, that was the WCW hotline at the time, because the internet wasn't as relevant with dirt sheets. There was just hotlines for every promotion out there at the time.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what we talked about is that WCW was dying, but their cruiserweight division was still pretty much thriving. And another guy I remember was like Romeo. Remember that guy, Romeo?
Kind of do.
Yeah, he was like a Billy Kidman lackey. But like we said, we had Al Elix Skipper. So there was a lot of the WCW. Remember, I think the last WCW pay per view was called Greed.
Yeah, there was Greed and New Blood. And, God, they just really screwed everything up. And,
yeah, so they had a match. It was like Kidman and Ray versus Romeo and Skipper. It was actually fucking good. It was a spot fest, but it was good.
I mean, like we said, basically just like the independent scene, everything's spot fest now and then. High spots is what cruiserweights live for. The only downfall to doing spots, especially on a consistent basis, is you do shorten the lifespan of your in-ring career. The older you get, the more spots you try to do, you gotta realize you do have to slow down because it does take a toll. Just like these pro wrestlers and indie wrestlers will say, when you wrestle on that shit, you got steel, you got wood, you got small padding. It is not a fucking trampoline. When you land on that shit, depending on what type of ring it is, it will hurt either way.
That fun, no doubt.
And or if you wrestled in the backyard and you got body slam on the ground, you best hope there ain't nothing down there sticking up. Spend the night in fucking ICU.
You want to get fucking shredded with a blade of grass.
Unless it's filled up, you land on some
shit. The lawnmower be mowed beforehand.
But anyway,
we ain't even going to get into Vince and what he did with the Lucha Libre when those guys came out.
I'm not even going to get into WWF, Lucha Libre, Cruiserweight bullshit. He totally dismantled the Cruiserweight division. Thanks, Hornswoggle. It wasn't his fault, though. He was the last Cruiserweight champion, too.
Absolutely. Like
WCW 2000, though, I'm not even going to talk about that either, because that's where shit got really weird, especially...
Yeah, I kind of brought it up, like, with Billy Kidman and Kidman was Romeo.
Great. Sadly, he and Shane Douglas had the Viagra on a pole match. Cannot forget that one. Tori was pretty much disappointed in that story. I'm glad they killed it off the way they did at the end.
Right, I always felt like Billy Kidman had, like, a career unfulfilled.
And, of course... Vince even ruined him in WCW or WWE. Like he came in as a cruiserweight and then they turned him into a heavyweight.
And an tag.
But didn't he have like a DMX theme song? That's the only thing that made him like a badass. He came in as he left as a heel.
Right. I think that and I think that's like, I have a spot for him on my five in my top five cruiserweights ever. I would put Ray, Eddie, Jericho, Malenko, and Kidman.
Yeah. Let's see. Kidman would definitely be on there. Dean Malenko would be on there. I would definitely put Psychosis and Rey Mysterio.
Yep. I'd left Psychosis off mine.
Psychosis was great. When when they unmasked him in WCW, they unmasked him. They unmasked Hoogie. They unmasked Ray. The top three luchas. Sure. It was sad to see them get unmasked because it's a traditional thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And if soon they get unmasked, I mean, if they did it in Mexico, it'd be a total true sign of disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
But in the States, it's a totally different thing. When they go back to Mexico, guess what? They're back to wearing a mask again. But of course, in the WWE, they unmasked the fake Sin Cara in Mexico.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even a live TV event. That was a house show in Mexico City. I'll have to find that video someday. But WCW was some weird shit.
Definitely. The old unmasking shit actually ruined it. I think Ray was in like the No Limits Soldiers.
He was in the No Limits faction. That was one thing. That's another thing. Maybe we'll talk about that down the road. The WCW 2000 factions, because that shit was weird, stupid. Varsity Club.
That'll fall under the worst factions / stables of all fucking time.
They knew they were going out of business anyway, so they might as well just do stupid shit because they can.
Hooty hoo.
But I'll wrap it up with one last thing, and it's Vince Russo doing the pinata on a pole match, and there was one pinata,
Jesus.
and whoever got the pinata opened it, and it was a pink slip, and you got fired.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking disgusting.
Like, there was no enjoyment in that whatsoever.
Yeah, that's awful.
Don't forget, Jamie Noble was in WCW for a bit.
Mhm.
It's right here on the card. December 18th, 2000. It's one and only match. But yeah, overall, I think WCW had one of the greatest cruiserweight divisions that you could ever ask for. Nowadays, you got AEW doing cruiserweight style stuff. You got guys like Danhausen, who is not exactly a cruiserweight, but he's very small, very good, very evil. I'll plug that one. You got guys like Orange Cassidy. You got Hook, has a son. He is a fucking beast.
Yo.
I finally got him talking on the mic after a year being in the company. Not even a year. Of course, like I said, you still got the Young Bucks who aren't exactly young anymore. They just need to be like, or just the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Omega, who's a heavyweight, still flies like a fucking cruiserweight. Can't forget Sammy Guevara.
Right.
Who else we got here? Who am I forgetting? Scorpio Sky.
No.
He's up there.
And I saved my cruiserweight, the best cruiserweight, for last. And some people may not agree with me, but the best cruiserweight of all time, one of the originators, was Owen Hart.
Oh my god!
So I think
the
combination.
Beware when they get high energy.
Right. I think the combination of Owen Hart's technical skill, his high flying skill, it lent a lot to guys like Dean Malenko, or Jericho, or
the pioneer of the cruiserweights before they were even noticed.
Exactly. There was a variety of skill. But that's my take on it. Appreciate it.
And if we're gonna go that far back, I'll time jump years before that. He was somewhat of a cruiserweight, but there was no defiance of it yet. He flew high too. The Dynamite Kid.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, like the
Dynamite, and before his death.
The Dynamite Kid versus Tiger Mask kind of set the standard for just free wrestling, just without guys who are like 240 and under, basically.
And of course, the only person that followed the footsteps of Dynamite Kid was Kid Pegasus.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but he's kind of forgotten now. But
Eddie, Black Tiger. Eddie was a fucking savage.
Well, how about the Black Scorpion?
Oh yeah.
Ric Flair.
Yeah.
WCW trolled us.
I don't even think Rick was a heavyweight, or he wasn't a cruiserweight. He was just dead weight.
He was just there. He was there.
Yeah, Rick was like dead weight, but he knew how to work.
It's funny because the promos that they did, the video build up, wasn't Ric Flair doing someone else. But when it came to doing the match with Sting and Black Scorpion, Stinger honestly was a high flyer, but he wasn't a cruiserweight. He was a heavyweight with a high flying status. But overall, I think WCW, like I said, one of the greatest cruiserweight divisions of all time. All these new promotions that are out there are elevating off of what WCW did. WWE made a mockery out of it, just like they do everything else, which is why I don't always support the WWE. They have some good creation out there. It's just that everything that they didn't create, they mocked the shit out of it. And this is why
WCW set the standard as far as cruiserweight.
But actually, ECW did, and then brought it over to WCW. But WCW reinvented everything that ECW did and made it just as entertaining. So, with that said, I think we're going to wrap this one up. I want to thank you for being on the show again. Later this week, we'll come up with some more content on what we'll talk about next. I can always talk WCW. I would love to talk more about the heavyweight division, even the mid-card division, if that. I might get back into ECW because that's your
all day, too. No doubt.
You could probably marathon that for 24 hours. I could take a nap and I'd come back
I
and we're
could
still
talk.
talking ECW.
That's right. I'll
The
still be talking
dedication
that
right
shit.
there.
Oh,
But yeah. Thanks again, brother. Always love having you on here, man.
hmm
Definitely want to start getting some guests on here with us soon. I want
absolutely.
to talk some wrestling with us because I know to talk about what we were just talking about earlier before the show. One of the greatest things we're going to talk about soon is e-feds,
Uh-oh.
internet feds. We're going to talk about the forums. We're going to talk about how we did things on internet relay chats,
That is a
chat rooms,
very, very deep dive back into the 90s.
90s, and it's still there. I don't know if they still do e-feds anymore like they used to. I was on an e-fed Facebook a while back called
I was going to say, I
Wrestling
think they do them on
Takedown.
social media now, which
I was on a e-fed
kind of
called WTF.
hey, no offense to the new e-feds, but that's kind of lame.
I was part of WTF, Wrestling Takedown Federation.
WTF.
Yeah, I'll have to find it.
That's great.
I'll have to find their
That's great.
Facebook page then. But
That's great.
I left there as the WTF or
Uh,
But all right, anything else you want to drop down here before?
no, I was. I had a good time tonight. I think we talked about a lot of cruiserweight wrestling and WCW and beyond, and I'm looking forward to our e-wrestling talk in a week.
Oh yeah, man. So with that being said, we'll see you next Friday night, around 10 o'clock Eastern, and so then, everyone be safe out there, and as always, thank you for watching.
Take care.